So today we are going to be going over everything related to the home buying process. I put a poll out there asking what people want to know about what it takes to buy a home in today's market. And I got a bunch of different questions, but today we're going to be going over 15 of those. Now, if you're wondering what I do as far as being able to answer these questions, I'm a realtor in the greater Cleveland area. I've been selling here for a long time and I sell a lot of houses every year, specifically relocations. I help a bunch of people move over this way from all over the country. So depending on what you're looking for, I might be able to help you out and make your life a lot easier when it comes time to transition. You can find all of my contact info if you are starting to think about that down in the description, but I want to hop right into the questions. And the first one on the list is, how much can I afford to spend on a home? Now that one's kind of a loaded question because there are a lot of factors that are going to play into how much you can actually afford. And the main one is going to be debt. And there's a really big trick to buying houses in this market, and it's going to be have no debt, because it's going to increase your buying power so much. Now, I'm not a lender, but there is a general rule of thumb where every extra $100 that you have of income per month is another $5,000 of spending power that you have. So what that means is if you have $1,000 a month in debt that you have to pay every single month, just by paying that off, you're going to get an additional $50,000 of spending power. So I guess if we look at an affordability calculator, we can start to take that into mind, and we will look at, say, an annual income around here per household is around $95,000. And if we are going to put in a monthly debt, say you've got a car and a student loan, we'll call it $1,500 that you have to spend per month. And if you have a down payment of $15,000 and a 40% debt to income ratio at a 7% interest rate, looks like you're going to be able to afford a house of about $200,000. Now that's a little lower than what our average house price is here. There are houses that are pretty decent available for that $200,000 mark, but realistically, if you're moving to the Cleveland area, you're probably going to want to be around that $250,000 to $300,000 mark. If you're below it, that's no big deal. We can definitely help you out, but it's going to kind of limit the areas that you can look in, and that's something that we'll go over a little bit more in depth when you buy. But if we were to take that $95,000 of annual income per household and subtract all of the monthly debts off of that, that jumps your affordability up to $375,000, which is going to be able to afford you a much nicer house in a better area. It's not only going to do one, take all of the weight off of your shoulder as far as having to make monthly payments to someone goes, but you're also going to be able to afford a different type of lifestyle. Whereas if you had all of that debt, you might not be able to get into the trendy location where you have a short walk to all of the different stores or restaurants that are in the area, and you'll be stuck making that commute. Now, there's a lot of ways to overcome debt, and I'm a big fan of Dave Ramsey and paying down your debt and everything that he preaches. And I'm actually a Ramsey certified realtor in the greater Cleveland area. So if you are starting to want to figure out how to pay that down, definitely go give his podcasts a listen, because they help a lot of people every year just get themselves into a better position. But if you're someone that needs to get into a house right now, there are ways around it, and you can still work your way out of debt while owning a home. And then within that 5 to 10 year period, as you pay off your debt, you're going to be able to move into something different that might suit your needs a little bit better. Next question is, what's the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval? Now, again, I'm not a lender, but a pre-qualification is basically just having a conversation with a lender on the phone, and they're going to ask you what your income is, what your debts are, and they're going to give you a rough estimate as far as what you might be able to afford without actually running your credit. Now, the pre-approval is what you're going to need in order to actually buy a house. Now, with the pre-approval, the lender will have collected all of your bank statements, pay stubs, W-2 forms, and all the different income and debt documents that are going to say whether or not you can actually afford the home. And the pre-approval is basically just the bank saying yes, they can buy a house and they can afford it. Number 3 on the list of questions for home buying is going to be, what's the first step of buying a home? Now, that one is easy. Go talk to a lender. They're going to be the ones that kind of determine what the whole process is going to look like for you, because they're going to set your budget. And then from there, that is what's going to allow the realtor to look for homes for you. So I guess you could kind of interview realtors and lenders at the exact same time. Me personally, I'm going to sit down with you, go through what the whole process as far as beginning to end goes for buying that home, just so you know what you're getting into. And then if you feel like we're going to be a good fit together, that's when we'll commit to each other. And during this time, you're going to be talking to different lenders as well, just to see who can get you the lowest rate or who you mesh the best with. So once you have that pre-approval, you are going to be able to hit the ground running with actually looking at houses and making offers on them. Number 4 on the list is, how do I know if a home is priced fairly? That's something that your realtor or myself are going to be able to help you with. The realtor's job is to do all of the research on the back end to make sure that you are making a good investment. And if you want a quick idea on how to tell if a home is priced fairly, you're going to pull up Zillow, turn on the recently sold category filter, and then from there you're going to be looking for houses that have sold within a, call it, half a mile radius in the last 6 months. And the houses that you're looking at, you're going to want to make sure that they are in similar condition and similar size to the one that you are examining. And you're going to want to make sure that the house that you're pulling up is comparable to the house that you're looking at. And what I mean by that is making sure that it has a similar size, similar count of bedrooms, bathrooms, similar condition, and that should get you pretty close to understanding what a rough value is for that. But like I said, the realtor is going to be able to look at more data and give you a way deeper understanding as far as exactly what it's worth. And then from there, as long as you're convinced, you can offer on the house or offer at whatever you feel is fit for the house itself. And then while you're under contract, the bank's still going to send in another person in there that's a third party to determine what the value is. And that will be the true test to this whole pricing process, because that third party is going to go in there and say one of two things: either yes, it's worth it, or no, it's not. And then from there, if the appraiser is saying that it's not worth what you're paying for it, then you just start to renegotiate from there, because every contract has a clause in there saying that the house has to appraise for the right value. Number 5 on the list of questions for the home buying process is, what is the current market like? Now, I wouldn't say we are in a seller's market anymore, but we're definitely not in a buyer's market, because at least in the Cleveland area, we don't have enough listings. The houses that are overpriced or beat up are going to be sitting on the market a little bit longer. I would say we're kind of in a limbo area, depending on what the scenario is for the house itself. Because if that listing is overpriced or extremely beat up, it's going to be a buyer's market where the buyer is going to have more negotiating power, just because there's less people that want that kind of thing. I'm noticing a lot of people are afraid to take those overpriced listings and offer super low on them. And that's something that you shouldn't be afraid of, because that's where you're going to get your best deals. But if the house is in great condition and there is a lot of interest on it, it's definitely a seller's market. So realistically, it's kind of a case-by-case scenario right now. I wish I had a better answer that was more straight to the point, but I don't, unfortunately. Number 6 on the list is going to be, how much do I need for a down payment on a home? Now, you can do as much as you want or as little as you want, within reason. A lot of lenders are going to be able to get you that 3% down payment option. We have different programs that are out there that are going to be down payment assistance, so you could potentially do 0, but in my opinion, I don't think it's worth doing those down payment assistance programs, because they're basically just another loan that is built into your mortgage, and you pay it back over 5 years. And if anything happens within that 5 years of living in the house and you need to sell it, it's going to be extremely hard, because you have essentially 0 equity in it. And there's quite a few fees that come along with the house sale process. So it's better to be safe than sorry and just put down some money up front, so that way you don't have to worry about it if disaster struck and you had to get rid of the house before that 5-year period. Personally, I would say don't go below that 3% down payment, just because within that 5-year period, you're gonna have mortgage pay down mixed with equity gain. And then when it comes time to sell, you're gonna be sitting in a really good spot to where you're probably gonna walk away with a good bit of money. Jumping into number 7, this person is asking, what are closing costs and how much should I expect to pay? Now, your closing costs are going to include everything from lender fees, title fees, and realtor fees. Now, if you work with me in particular, I'm going to always negotiate my fees through the seller, so that way you don't have to worry about paying me out of pocket. But in some cases, there are sellers who do not offer a buyer's agent commission, so you might have to make up a little bit depending on the situation, and that's something I can go over more in depth with you. A lender is probably going to charge you between 1 and 1.5% of the purchase price, and then same with the title company. So realistically, between the down payment and all of the fees associated, I would expect to be between that like 5 and 10% area, but it's really going to be case specific, because some different areas offer different grants for home buyers, and that could significantly reduce your closing costs. Different lenders are going to have different fees associated with what they charge. So if you're curious at all about where you need to be, definitely reach out and we can start having those conversations without running your credit or anything, so that way you can get a game plan together and then figure out exactly what the steps are in order to get that house. Next question on the list, number 8, is how long does the home buying process take? That one can vary significantly depending on what your scenario is. Again, a lot of these are scenario specific, but if you're a cash buyer, you can close a house in as little as 7 days. If you're working with one of my lenders who does all of the pre-approval process and underwriting before we even get in a house, it can be as fast as 15 days once you have a house under contract. If you work with a regular retail lender, it can be upwards of 30 days, and that's on a conventional loan. If you have an FHA loan, it can take even longer, upwards of 45 days. And the same goes for VA. Those probably will land around that 45-day mark as well, just because there's a lot of processing that goes along with it. So if you've got a loan, I would budget for around 30 days once you're under contract before you can actually get into the home. And yeah, that's probably what you can expect. Number 9 on the list of questions is, should I get a home inspection? For the love of God, yes, get a home inspection. Even if you're in multiple offers, there are ways around writing an offer so that way you can still have a home inspection and still get out. And I go over that in some of my other videos as far as the negotiation tactics go. When you're writing an offer on a house, you're gonna wanna make sure that you're working with someone who knows how to negotiate, because if you're working with an agent who doesn't know what they're doing, there's a very good chance that you can get taken advantage of or misled. So that's why I harp on getting multiple opinions throughout the process, just so that way you know that you're covered. Number 10 is, what is the role of a real estate agent? And that one is basically just having someone in your corner acting in your best interest, so that way you don't get taken advantage of in this process. Because let's face it, this is probably going to be one of the most expensive purchases of your lifetime, and you do not want to take that lightly. You're going to want to make sure that you work with someone who does this type of thing every single day, and not only someone who does it every single day, but someone who does a lot of transactions every single year, so that way they know the process like the back of their hand. And me personally, I do that. I have a team with 2 people under me that help me out, and we've been in the real estate business for a long time, and we help a lot of people every single year in the greater Cleveland area. So in my opinion, you can't go wrong with working with us, but I guess that really just comes down to you giving us the chance to interview for the position of helping you buy your home. I can almost guarantee that we're gonna do a great job for you. Now, as far as the role of agency goes, you technically can go to the listing agent directly and write an offer with them. However, they're not going to be in your best interest because they're representing the seller. Their job is to get as much money as they possibly can for the seller. And then when you go and ask them to help you out write an offer, they're basically just going to let you make all the decisions and tell them what you want to write, to play a kind of sort of middleman, I would call it. Whereas with someone like me and my team, we will be actively negotiating to try and get the price down lower and letting you know what our professional opinion is as far as your chances on getting the different homes, depending on what's happening with the particular one that you're looking at. So do yourself a favor and make sure you're properly represented when you are going through this process, because if you're not, it could potentially bite you in the butt. As far as number 12 on the list of home buying questions goes, someone asked, so what are the most common mistakes that a first-time home buyer can make? And there are quite a few that I've gone over in the past, but I would say number 1 is making a large purchase during the home buying process that ruins their chances at getting financed, whether they take on more debt or they don't have enough money to close on the house. Do not buy anything big before you close on your first house. The second one that I see that could be detrimental to a homeowner is skipping your inspections. That is not something that is worth doing by any means in any scenario, unless you know what you're looking at when we are walking through the house. I don't let people give up their inspections, 1, because it's another negotiation point, and 2, because the inspector is going to go and spend a lot of time in there and let you know exactly what you are buying as far as the quality and condition goes. The last mistake that I've seen first-time home buyers make is waiting too long to make an offer. Now, unfortunately, if there are multiple offers on a house, you're going to have to act on it relatively quickly. And if it's fresh to the market, you want to act before any other offers come in. So when you're jumping into this process, you are going to want to be able to make decisions quickly. Sometimes it's intimidating when you only look at 3 or 4 houses and find one that you want to write an offer on that you would be happy in, but you need to trust your gut and actually jump into it before someone else does and creates a multiple offer bidding situation where you're having to go above the list price. The last one was number 11. This one's number 12. I'm pretty sure I got that wrong, but we can figure that out later. But the real question for number 12 was, how do I know if the neighborhood is good? Now, for me, I always suggest to my clients that it's worth driving through the neighborhood 3 different times a day, morning, noon, and night, just so you can get an idea of what traffic patterns are like. And then also you can see if there's people hanging out on their front porches and it's a good community feeling, if people are walking their dogs at nighttime. Going through at the different times of day is just really going to solidify that deal for you, so that way you know exactly what you're getting into. Because I've seen people move into houses just to find out that at 5 p.m. traffic hits and people are using their street as a cut through to avoid the traffic, and it just gets super busy around that time, and that could be a turnoff for someone. So yeah, do your due diligence and go there at a few different times of day. Number 13 on the list is going to be, what is an escrow account and why is it important? Now, an escrow account is essentially a holding account where a lender is going to keep money to make different payments for you. So over time, the monthly budget is going to allow for a small amount of money to go towards your taxes and your insurance and any other fees that you have to make along with that. It'll all total out to a certain amount over the year, where the taxes will get paid twice a year and your insurance will get paid once a year. That way they can pay it in full and just incorporate it all into one area. So that way you're not stuck making those payments yourself. If they collect too much money, they'll return the remainder to you. If they don't collect enough, you will get stuck with a bill. It doesn't always happen, but when it does, it's not a good feeling, and you might have to write a check for a couple $100. So keep that in mind if you are starting to think about buying a house. Question number 14 came in with, what contingencies should I write into my offer? And again, that's going to be situational, but if you're the buyer and there are no other offers, you're going to be in the seat with the power. So you are going to be able to ask for more contingencies. You're going to have a regular home inspection. You can ask for them to pay some of your closing costs. You can ask for them to pay for a home warranty, which is going to cover all the appliances and mechanicals on the house for 1 year. And there's a huge array of different things that you can ask for. If you're in a multiple offer situation, you're probably going to have to cover your own closing costs. You can more than likely still ask for the seller to cover that home warranty, but if you don't want to and you have the ability to, you can just cover it yourself. It's around $500. You're still going to ask for an inspection, but the trick here is, if you're comfortable with it, tell the seller that you won't ask for any repairs after the inspection. That way you can still back out if anything big was found, but it gives that seller the assurance that you're not going to ask for any money off or any repairs to be made. That way it makes the process super easy for them. And that's just one of the inside tips as far as writing a strong offer goes in the multiple offer situation. You just want to make sure you're covered. Number 15 on the list for home buying questions is kind of a loaded question. How do I know if a house is a good investment? Now, in my opinion, all houses are great investments. You just have to have the right exit strategies if you are planning on getting out of it at some point. Especially if you're an investor, you want to have multiple exit strategies. But the general rule of thumb is that the value is going to appreciate, and mixed with that mortgage pay down over a long period of time, you are going to have a good investment on your hands. Now, when it turns into not a great investment is if you have to sell within the first 5 years of owning it, you might lose a little bit of money or break even. But lately, with how the market's been going and how aggressive we are with our marketing campaigns, we are able to put our sellers in pretty good positions, but we're not here to talk about sellers. The other thing that you can do to make sure that it's a good investment is do some research on the area. If the area is in a decline and it's not looking good for the future, that could potentially impact your home value. So you're gonna wanna make sure that you're buying in a place that is on the up and up. That way you can pretty much ensure appreciation over time. And another thing with that is, before you write an offer on the house, make sure you're getting a decent deal on it. If you're the only offer on it, write an offer that is below list price and below what the house is worth, so that way you're getting immediate equity in the house when you move into it. The other thing you can do is buy a house that needs a little bit of work or a lot of work. I love the houses that need paint and flooring because they're ugly when you walk through it, but if you do a little bit of cheap work to it, it can fully transform how the house feels and what it's worth. And paint and floors are something that you can do yourself or pay someone to do without breaking the bank. So there's a lot of different scenarios on how to make it a good investment, but those are a few different options for you. Now, last question on the list is, what's going on behind you? You've got a lot of stuff happening over here. So realistically, I just wanted a reason to kind of show off what I've got going on. I actually have a buyer who is an artist, and I had him commissioned to do a painting for me, but we actually ended up trading, and I built him a staircase, but he built me this really cool art piece, and I have it hanging on my wall now behind me, and it fits my vibe, kind of like how my mind is going on. It's just a really cool piece altogether. But over here, I've got a bunch of different pictures from my life, and that is currently covering up my electric panel because I just changed up how everything is on this back wall behind me. I don't know if I'm going to keep it, but that's where we're at with that. And then above here, I have my music collection, a little bit of vinyl, a little bit of CD, some camera stuff. And then over here is my bookshelf with all of my life motivation and some of my record players and old iPods and stuff. And of course a printer, because it's an office and we always got to keep up with that. But it's something that a lot of you may not know is that I'm into kind of the retro gaming stuff. So whenever I have some free time, I like to play like old games like PlayStation, GameCube, things like that on the old TV. And then there's a little bit of my collection as well, just old consoles and everything that I think is neat. And then Here's my desk setup. So we've got the TV and the desktop computer along with my laptop, and then another gaming station over here as well. But kind of a mess, kind of not a mess, but it makes me happy. So my office is kind of a pretty good reflection of what my personality is. I'm kind of scatterbrained and all over the place. And being in here is kind of one of those things that makes me super happy. So I hope you like that show and tell. But if you're starting to think about moving to the greater Cleveland area, definitely reach out to me. All of my contact info is down in the description. And while you're down there, all my social media is in there. So definitely go check that out. But before you leave, make sure you like and subscribe, because that's going to keep you up to date with everything that's happening in the greater Cleveland area. Otherwise, I'm going to leave the video there. I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.